What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're back over here on Matt's car, resuming our NATT swap series. And while this is something I really highly recommend everyone to do, not only if you're NATT swapping, but if your car has an original wiring harness, it's about due to get a new one. All these connections are going to be so brittle and cracked, and not to mention corroded with that green dust of death. Little editor's note, you don't need a twin turbo harness for an NATT swap. If you're running twin turbo stock boost solenoids, yes, you do. But if you're running a boost controller, you can use an NA harness. Let's do the Z a favor and let's upgrade our main component to this car, keeping it alive and running well, our wiring harness. Like this one right here, that coolant temp sensor is corroded beyond belief. So basically we're going to be getting rid of all of this nasty old crusty wiring purely for our engine harness right here. And well, to do this correctly and easily, you have to pull the dash. I find pulling the dash being way easier, mainly because during this swap, there's a bunch of other things that we can work out with the dash out, like our boost controller, any extra sensor wiring, etc., etc. And because we have this beautiful harness right here, all nice and new, and Matt also brought us this dash here that he wants us to swap out because he's actually having some dash peel right here beginning in his dash. Probably can't see it well, but it's there. So the reason we're actually going to pull the dash to tackle all this is back here by your AC evaporator core, there's actually a bracket that holds your wiring harness into place, like right here, from here to here. Now you can pull the glove box and get access to one of the bolts from below, and shoot, you can even fish it through without removing the plate with a little bit of persuasion with a pry bar. It's possible. I've done it. However, do not recommend it. It's way too easy to tear wires, break connectors, and ruin your harness feeding it through and forcing it, rather than just pulling all the stuff out the way and feeding it through nice and easily. So that's why we're doing this the hard way and maybe the unnecessary way for some of you guys, but this will help you learn a little bit more about your Z and how to dive into it and pull the dash too, so you don't have to feel as scared about, tackling electrical stuff in your Z32. The reason we need to get this done so we can finish the wiring up, get a little bit of access down here so we can clean up these little rust spots, get them resealed, recoated, and then we can clean the bay, work our AC lines and our intercooler stuff in. So that's another thing you can be looking forward to very, very shortly. First and foremost, we're going to start inside the car, and we're just going to start removing all the components that we can to get access to remove the dash. I do have a video on how to remove and install interior all like bolt by bolt, so if you guys want to know exactly where all that stuff is, please check that video out. I'm not going to show you every screw and bolt here. We're just going to remove pieces, kind of show you the process of elimination. I apologize in advance. I know it's not going to be the easiest to see while we work inside of the car, but I'll make sure everything is visible for what needs to be seen. But for now, just bear with me. But the number one thing I always recommend, put your bolts or screws back as soon as you take it out, so you have no question of knowing where everything goes. Oh man, we're actually loose on this side. Oh yeah, this pod housing's smashed. Typical though. Now you gotta be careful with these screw bosses over here. These things are notorious for breaking. And it seems that these already have, but he's got a temp fix in place. Because if your turn signals and stuff don't work, it's because all this up here is bound up and your switch doesn't have room to go back. And that seems to be what's going on right here. Oh, there we go. Thing's always tough. So I didn't even realize the hood was what was blocking out all the light, so hopefully you guys got a little bit better view now. Now that we got both the pods off, we can actually start pulling this knee panel down here, which just has like 4 10 mils. There's some right here on the face and down in the bottom corner. Then that'll actually open up your, I think there's 2 10 mils holding this on and also 2 10 mils up here. But also to get this off, nicely, it's better that you pull your clamshell prior. I guess we'll do all that real quick. So yes, I was correct that the clamshell needs to come off to get access to pop these clips out down here. And I completely forgot to mention you got to pop this side panel off. So now we're going to pull the cluster. All we have is 2 Phillips at the bottom and 3 connectors on the back. I did forget to mention that this faceplate, if you have a 1990, actually unplugs in the faceplate and runs up here. If you have an airbag model or like 91 and 96, you'll have 2 connectors up here that actually are not connected to that whatsoever. They're completely separate. Because all the lights that are in the dash panel up here are actually in the cluster on the later models. All these connectors are always so tough. I don't know why you gotta pinch them with 900 pounds of force. There we go. Probably gonna have to say we need to switch over here to the radio. So you got 2 screws here hidden up top behind these little covers, and then this cover actually comes off as well. It's got like spring clamps in it. Oh, I guess we don't need to remove all that. I guess he left it loose for us. We are actually going to have to pull the radio out. The radio mounts to the dash itself, so you have to disconnect the wiring and whatnot to pull it with the dash. Once you got all your mounting screws out, just kind of pull it forward and disconnect your connectors to your head unit. If it's done right like this, you'll actually have a separate sub harness to unplug from your factory wiring. Now that the radio's out, we're actually going to pull this shifter bezel out, 2 screws in the top, and you also got 1 screw right here below your ashtray. Now if you don't want to disconnect your shift knob, you don't have to. You can still kind of like pull it up and move it out of the way enough just to be able to get these 2 panels off so we can disconnect them from the dash. That's really the only reason we need this to come off. So once you do get this off, you have 2 bolts here and 2 here. Same goes for both sides, but we're focusing over here before we switch to the passenger side. It's a little nicer to do everything in one spot before you gotta, you know, jump back and forth. When it comes to popping it off, you kind of got to push this down because there's a little locking tab to keep it behind the center console. When it comes to removing your passenger side interior, your first piece you got to tackle is this kind of treacherous piece down here at the bottom. Perhaps I should have said terrible for probably improper use of a word there, but here we just have these like little screws. I think these were actually replaced because most of the time I'm pretty sure these like screw out and you have to unscrew them enough to be able to pop this out. As you can see, as this pops through, it spreads these out to keep it from coming out. Now that gives us access to remove our glove box by our 2 hinge bolts or nuts down here at the bottom, as well as our Phillips right here holding this little swing arm. And pop our little tabs off for our bolt covers. Get access to all our 10mm bolts. So there's going to be probably like 6 or so, maybe even 7 on this glove box bracket. But to actually pull this bracket off, you have to remove this over here first. Same thing as the other side, 2 screws, but there's 2 bolts over here. There were actually screws on that side. And then once you get this bracket off, you'll get access to this. So a lot of times people will think this comes off first. It doesn't. It's actually tucked behind this glove box frame. And we're doing all of this just to get access to this right here. Realistically, you don't have to pull the dash here because you could just pull the glove box to get enough room right here to pop this AC core out. But we are pulling this dash, like I said previously, so we can install boost controllers or a boost controller and all of our electronics that we may run so we can have a clean and open slate to do so. We're actually not doing the boost controller and all that this video because I want that to be kind of consolidated into one video where I can make it make sense to everyone. And not only that, we actually are going to keep an open slate in here for running all of the other electronics that we're debating on. Not only that, there's a little bit of bracketry in here that's like stripped out and bolts that are stripped. So I'd like to swap that out with good stuff so we can, you know, have everything correct in here. That glove box just slid and it scared the living crap out of me. There are some like locking tabs in here that kind of hold everything into place after you get your bolts out, in case you ever have a hard time like that. And now let's pull the bracket off. We can pull this corner piece off and actually get access to all of our, you know, general dash mount points to pull this out. Glove box is out, and now we have 4 screws for this little piece, and it's off. Now before we start tackling all of our dash mount pieces, we actually have to focus up here on our dash vents. So this one is very sketch, very nerve-wracking to do, especially on like very original vanilla cars. Especially when you got dash peel, because usually that means it's had its bit of sun exposure. So you have to try to get a flathead or a plastic interior pry bar set underneath the lip up here of these dash vents and get it started. Once you get it started, you got to slowly work your way around, popping up them tabs while also trying not to snap all of them, because your clip is actually like here, here, and so on. Okay, we got it started. I hope that was okay. It was somewhat on camera. Once you get it started, you can just work it along and it'll slowly pop all of them clips. A whole bunch of lip biting later, we managed to get it out. Ta-da! Magic. No, but you almost feel like you did do some magic getting that out when you don't break it. So sickening when you crack it. Now we've got 3 bolts here up behind that, each edge, one in the center. We've got one here on both sides. You've also got one back here. And you got a 10 mil up here behind your cluster. Now once you remove all of them, I'm pretty sure that's it. Your dash should be ready to come out. So let's pull them out and show you guys kind of the tactic of how to snake the dash out and the right angle of the dangle, if you will. I did forget to mention, I guess his dash is totally busted from the sun. But right here, this is actually your chime for your interior, so you gotta unplug that too. Step 1 is actually yanking it to break the clips in each corner loose. Honorable mention, take your vent out of the driver's side. It'll help it get over the steering column. Does help with your e-brake down too. Get it kind of pulled back enough that you can twist it up and get it to clear that ignition and all the steering column. Now we got all the room for, activities, at least ease of access, I should say. Now we've got a 10 mil down here holding this HVAC vent on. We'll pull that because I'm gonna have to disconnect everything from this HVAC box. Twist and pull your relay down. I'm pretty sure that should quick disconnect it. If not, just unplug the actual connector. Yeah, like that. Then when you peel your carpet back down here, you'll see 2 legs coming down off this unit. And you've also got a 10 mil right up here that you're gonna get from behind the crash bar. I guess you could use a ratcheting wrench or something. Now our HVAC box is fully loose. So what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna move to the engine bay and we're gonna loosen those 2 lines up. So now up here in the engine bay, we've got these 2 fittings right here on this AC evaporator core. We need 2 adjustable spanner wrenches and we're gonna use these to loosen these lines. So we're gonna disconnect them and remove this 10 mil bolt that holds this bracket and grommet on. Once we remove them, we'll be able to push the AC core back and give us enough room to pull that bracket off. They shouldn't be on that tight. They should really only be snug unless someone's been in here, jacking with stuff. 1 line down. Yep. Wasn't tight. How it should be. Alright. Fully disconnected. Once you get that off, there's a little 10 mil right here in between. Remove that. And you may need to remove the 10 mils to this bracket over your brake and clutch line to be able to get enough room to kind of pry that back bracket out. When you get the bracket off, just force a flathead kind of behind the top. I guess you don't really even need it. Sometimes it's a little stuck from never being moved, but you just kind of pull it towards you. And when it comes out, just keep a mental note. It goes back in the same way. So now we've got access to actually wiggle this out and pull it backwards. So we're gonna kind of remove it completely so we have just a big gap or void there in our footwell area on the passenger side. Now basically, as you pull this thing out, you're trying to find the sweet spot of getting those fittings to come up over that lip on the firewall And also at first getting it separated from the heater core, because there's like an adhesive foam strip between the two. Likes to get a little stuck. Pry it down. Get this little tab past the bar. Oh, it would help if we unplug that. Wiggle it down and out the way. Now that the core's out the way, we're here for the whole reason that, you know, we did all this. Up here, by those two holes, you got a 10 mil, and also the 10 mil to the lower corner of your heater core box. You can pry on the bracket and slide it out. And ta-da, the pain in the butt has been removed. So you can see it slides in at the bottom and only bolts at the top. So once you get this out, you can just kind of slide it out the way. Trash. Now we've got like a clear shot looking at our wiring harness, and we have all the room to be able to snake it in and out from up here. Honorable mention, this is your AC evaporator core. You just disconnect it there and leave it kind of in the firewall, and then you can plug it back into the core once we get the core back into place. Now, I have to pull this back, get access to this board, and pull our ECU board. So here we've got a bolt on the side, a bolt down here, and a bolt back over here. Technically they're like screws, but they got a 10 mil head. Our ECU's out. I recommend using a wrench here or a ratchet. Don't use like an impact or a power tool. Because as you loosen this, you want to make sure the ECU connector stays as evenly as possible and it doesn't like come out crooked, because you could damage the connector and the pin out inside there. Again, I apologize about the light. I guess I got more to do about my shop lighting here. Never really thought about the interior view or shots of anything, just the exterior, but now we know. Separate the connector from the ECU, and now we can come down here and actually unplug that other connector right there. We get to feed it through the engine bay now. So now let's go pull out all of our bracketry holding the wiring harness on, and we can snake it out. Now I am almost certain that everything up here in the engine bay is going to be a 10 mil. So I guess I'll just run over all the bolts and stuff so you guys can get a quick shot, and I'll just pull them all off. Here on the very entrance of the harness, you got a 10 mil on both sides. Here, take this bracket off. I believe there's 3 10 mils holding it on. Then you have a little U or a P bracket back here, P clamp, kind of like this. And then you have another one back here that actually goes on this top bolt to this bracket. Always got confused with that when I was putting stuff back together, but a little tip for you guys. You'll disconnect it from the fuse box right here. There's like a little, I don't know, plastic clip that holds it in. You can pry them both in and pop it out. A 10 mil here. You have a ground right down here. And then the rest of your wiring, you can just pull out that goes up to your MAF sensor. So let's disconnect all that and get it kind of freed up so we can pull it out. All right, so a little tip here, pull this bolt off the top. I did forget these 2 connectors back here. Just so you can actually pull your fuse box out the way and pull these interface plugs behind that wiring. Another tip, when you pull all those brackets off, I try to kind of lay them in the same orientation so I know about where they went and kind of the direction. Once you go putting it back together, this part can be really confusing because it could all flip-flop and they could really all interchange almost. For the main point of the video, we're just gonna pull here, up and out to pop this grommet out, and you can snake the other end up. Try not to flick your coolant everywhere like I just did. Big dummy move. Pull this connector out first. It'll usually give you the access. You may need to go inside and make sure you're not getting hung up on anything. I about guarantee you were stuck on that bracket at the bottom. I was correct. It was stuck on that bottom bracket. See how easy this comes out when you do it all the right way and you don't force it out and back in. You may have to pull a couple brackets off, but usually the brackets you remove just to get the harness out is plenty enough. Pry them out a little to get that big grommet through. And good old out with the old, and let's go grab the new. I'm not sure when they started doing this revision on the Z1 harness, but now there's this big like heat wrap part. But since we're in with the new, I'm just going to kind of feed this through the same way that we fed it out. Not get stuck on those studs on the back. And one thing about the Z1 harness, which is like the only thing from Z1 that I like, it's got a quick disconnect, so you can actually remove this all to help it get through the firewall in the event that you didn't, you know, take the route that we did. Heat that through. Well, yep, it's time to put it back. Literally just simple as that. This clip's 30 minutes long and we've swapped out a wiring harness. Maybe. Here you just got to get it started at the right angle so you don't get caught on anything in there. Once you get it started, smooth sailing. Especially with this little connector revision. Now this part helps with a flathead. Kind of squeeze each of these edges just to get it started, but flathead's not necessary, just helps. We just kind of laid the harness out the way so we can start getting all of our brackets back on. I'm still not sure how I feel about this big old thing, but since we kept all of our brackets in the same orientation, let's throw them back on. We'll give you guys a little update of, you know, maybe our complications. Fully secured officially. Well, that was definitely not as fun as I remember. So when we put it back together, I noticed that they run the PTU and the coolant temp and cast stuff separately, so you can do a PTU relocation. So we actually have all that up here on the nose panel. I believe I have a bracket that I can mount it up here to this. As factory, we ran these interface cables back behind the fuse box. And for here, this is zip tied to the brake lines for some reason. We're going to rerun that when it comes to putting everything back together. So it's not permanent. Wasn't able to use the bracket right here. I don't think I'll really need to. I'll just make sure that we're clear from that when we put everything together. I did forget about this bracket. We do, at least we should try to get this on, but I'm really not seeing how. Okay. Yeah, we can still do this one, thank goodness. I thought it was gonna be impossible. So after we do those 3 tens, pretty much we're done with the install of the harness itself. Now we're obviously not gonna show you guys how to put it all back together due to us putting the boost controller and fixing a couple things here in the next couple videos in the interior. But I did want to bring some light to this for anyone. Say if you're wanting to try this in car, you get a visual representation of what you're dealing with down there on the firewall to know what to take off, how to get it out, and then what you're looking at to put it back in. That's why I prefer to take everything out. Much easier, much less of a headache. You'll probably have the same amount of time, if not less, taking the extra time to remove the dash and all that. But what this harness is going to do, it's going to get rid of all of the unknown gremlins that we have, you know, unless for some reason there's a pinout that's mixed up. Haven't had that happen yet. Don't foresee it happening. But yeah, we're going to clean up all kinds of issues with this. I'm super excited. Not to mention that, look how much nicer that kind of sharpened up the bay. Got this nice, bright, black, shiny harness. So we're going to go grab some paint so we can clean all this up, wire brush it, and get it correct. We're also going to consult Matt about replacing this aftermarket power steering setup. Reason being is I think this is going to get in the way when we have everything all hooked up and said and done. Hope this video helped you guys out. I know it would have helped me a while back, especially all the times that I tried to force it through the firewall. Now you see the bracket that you're kind of dealing with in there. And again, don't forget to check the video in the description if you want to see a step-by-step nut, bolt, screw, everything guide for taking your interior dash out, because I have a video for that, but that's like an hour-long video. So if you need that, go check that out. If not, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe down below to stay tuned for more content. I'm ready to go in, pump this video out for you guys today, because I missed Sunday, of course. I had a couple unknowns jump in the way like usual, but I'm tired of apologizing. I'm just going to show you guys by putting out some content and, you know, staying steady and true to the series. So hope you guys are excited as I am, and until next time, we will catch you guys then. Peace.